Everything you want in life is on the other side of a hard conversation, whether it's with yourself, your partner, your boss, or even your family. When we run from hard conversations, we pay for it with the very relationships that matter the most. In this episode, we're going to unpack why hard conversations matter, what makes them so difficult, especially for ADHDers and scapegoats in a dysfunctional family system, and give you some practical tools to handle these conversations without losing yourself. Hello, truth tellers. Welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat podcast. I'm Angie.
I'm Jeremy. Quick disclaimer, we're not therapists. We're not therapists. That was a test. We share lived experience, research, and coaching tools to help you navigate. Please take what resonates and leave the rest.
Exactly.
So, Angie, I think this topic is really important because a lot of us grow up believing that avoiding conflict equals keeping the peace. Guilty as charged. What I've learned, though, is actually it's the opposite. And I know, you've taught me a lot about this, and I know you have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, when you say everything you want is on the other side of a hard conversation is like what makes those conversations hard to begin with. They're important to you, right? So, I was going to say, for many people, but maybe I should say most, avoidance feels safer in the short term in these situations. But without thinking about it, it robs you of long-term emotional safety, genuine connection, and like real love. So trauma often wires us to stay quiet, especially family scapegoats. We're taught that speaking up equals punishment. And funny part is for ADHDers, our impulsivity and emotional intensity will make us, blurt too much in the moment. Then we're mocked and belittled or yelled at into silence, really. And other times, due to that same pattern of a response from the toxic people, we're too afraid the next time to speak, right? We realize, oh, this happened last time, so I don't want that to happen this time, so I'm going to be quiet. It always depends on the situation, what level our impulsivity can't hold back. But for me, in order to stay silent in some moments, I usually will just need to remove myself physically from the situation. Otherwise, I can't stop myself from speaking up. It's like I have to get away from it in order to not, I can't sit and allow something to just go.
Right. Whereas me, on the other hand, I've definitely avoided conversations at work, in our relationship, in my personal life, with parents, siblings, friends, and I always thought that I was keeping the peace by doing, kind of avoiding that, or just
not wanting to burden.
I don't want to burden them. I don't want to stir anything up. I'll just stuff it down. I'll eat my feelings and let it, the situation will play out. It almost never does smooth out. It always just gets worse. Yeah. And my anxiety just ballooned, which, again, worrying about the unknown, stuffing this thing down. The book that we read to the kids that I reference all the time, Ruby Has a Worry. Mm-hmm. That's real.
You could have used that book when you were a kid.
Yeah, I definitely could have. So avoiding those things ends up being a barrier to the things that we want. And I do this all the time at work, right? I'll kind of just get by with the resources that I have, or the support that I need at work, or the support that I have at work, or lack of support that I have at work. And I don't ask for the things that I need now. Through your encouragement, through talking it through, just having more confidence, I ask for the things I need 9 times out of 10, I get them. And then I go, oh my God, this is like my work life just got 90% better because I have a computer that actually allows me to edit 4K footage, or, I have the tools that I need to shoot the video that I'm being asked to do at work and figuring it out. And I'm spending all of this time and these resources trying to solve a problem, like MacGyver a problem, or a solution rather, to a problem, when I could just ask for the right tool and someone would say yes, and that's it. So it's really not a hard conversation. These are actually really easy conversations. Once you have them, it's hard to get started.
It's practice. It takes practice. And that's why I think the combative nature that is, toxic people act like you're trying to start something, or like you said, like, I don't want to stir the pot. But it's like, well, no, what you're doing is, it won't be hard once you start doing it. And once you see what's the worst they can say? No, or, shut you down. Okay, well, you're trying to do the right thing and you're trying to, make this work out, whatever that looks like. And it just takes practice. But yeah, they're hard conversations just because they're important, not because they're actually hard.
Yeah, and nobody wants to hear no, but really, if that's the worst, if you say that to yourself, if you're not even talking yourself into it. If you rationalize a situation and you really get to the conclusion, well, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just going to say no. Okay.
And then I'll be where I am right now.
Exactly, right. Except I'll have that off my chest.
Yeah, I'll know that that's not coming. So maybe I need to have a long-term solution.
Yeah.
Implemented now, right?
It's just kind of having that what if that is a burden.
Yeah. But you don't know until you do it.
Exactly.
So avoiding conflict, like you just presented, does not keep the peace or make anything better. There's 2 trauma experts that talk about this, Ingrid Clayton and Patrick Tian. They talk about the fawn and freeze trauma responses that keep people in this toxic silence. I love both of them. Look them up. They're great. And I've always had this issue with, people that brag about never fighting. They're really suppressing the truth. That's not peace. That's fear-based. Never having an argument, or people that say, I feel like we see it on Family Feud all the time or something. I don't know, where people are like, nope, never had a fight in our, whatever years of marriage. I'm like, oh my gosh.
One of those.
What does your digestive tract look like? You're holding some stuff in. But, in my family, my emotionally immature siblings pride themselves on never having a fight. And it's laughable because it's so obvious that she doesn't speak up for herself with him because she's seen how he treats me. And so she's always just kind of done what he says to avoid his attacks. Mm-hmm. And that's why we, me and my older sister always try to empower her with stick up for yourself. He can't tell you to do that. The one example was my backpack. I remember it was 5th or 6th grade. My backpack was on the floor, or my brother's backpack was on the floor near me where I was sitting.
Sure.
And he was like, get my backpack and bring it to me. And I was like, you get it. I'm not your maid, you get it. And he was like, get it. I knew he was going to beat me up. And I was like, you can get it. I'm not getting I was doing my homework. And so he's like, to my other sister, you go get it. And so she just got up and, got it. And then of course I'm compared to her about how she listens and I'm going to get it and stuff. And it was just you don't have to pick up his backpack. He can do that. Stop letting him treat you like that. But anyway, this is just a small thing that I still remember to this day. So it obviously impacted me. But in narcissistic families where these systems assign roles, like the scapegoat or the golden child or, the lost child, whatever, the silence benefits the most abusive one, not the ones who are being abused. And that silence enables the abuse to continue. So people staying silent, people, not having a hard conversation, not listening when people bring up things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, just enables the abuse to continue.
Right. So when couples say, we don't fight, they're just avoiding honesty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their connection maybe isn't real. Neither of them are being authentic, or just one is masking to comply with the more toxic
Right.
one with all of the power.
Right.
So you're not being your authentic self.
No, so you don't really have a real connection, because real connection requires there to be repair after rupture, whatever
Right.
that looks like.
Well, in a relationship, these are any relationship, it's two individuals
Right.
who may share a lot of things in common, who get together, and then if you get married and you live together, there's a lot of compromise that needs to happen for that relationship to
discussions,
continue to work.
how do we want this to look?
Yeah, it has to
Right.
evolve. It can't just be one person saying, okay, this is how it is, go along with it, and then the other person is supposed to just, like, you're just going to build up resentment and be miserable.
Right. And I think part of it is like, I always felt, and I think I just did this out of my ADHD impulsivity of like, just like no filter, like right up front. If something fell off right away, I would be like, no, I don't like that. I want to do something else. I don't think that's going to work for me. And I think there's this mentality, if I, especially with women, if you have standards, or if you, stick up for yourself, or you say, no, that doesn't work, no man's going to want you, kind of an attitude. And so it's like, so you sit and maybe for a while you like acquiesce and make yourself smaller and go along to get along and don't say what you really want. Then all of a sudden you're in a relationship, and maybe then you feel a little more safe after a little while to start to show up as yourself. And that's where conflict arises.
Right.
And more problems will exist.
Right. Why didn't you say it at the beginning of the relationship? Why is this coming up all of
Yeah.
a sudden? What's wrong? What's wrong with you?
It's like, well, I didn't want you to not like me, so I just said what you wanted me to say.
Right.
And I was always like, what on earth? Like, that never made sense to me. And now I see why people do it. I totally get it. Like, there's usually something else that it's maybe childhood trauma, like this experience of feeling not chosen, those types of things, right?
Or in an abusive relationship, it's, oh, they'll change. Usually he'll change, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other partner thinking, he'll change, he'll mature, this will get better, it's just a phase, I can fix it. No. It's not going to change. You're not going to fix it. It's going to get worse.
Right. And so when you approach any of these hard conversations, you need to know that they require curiosity. So instead of assuming a narrative like they won't understand or they'll get mad or whatever, you allow curiosity to open the door to this conversation. So just like assuming, someone's intentions without talking to them creates a narrative around why they did what they did, like my whole background check situation. It's like she wants to have something to hold against him later, or she doesn't want me to be happy, but I'm just not going to blindly support someone who has shown me nothing that I can trust or given me a reason to trust them. Trust is earned, right? Mm-hmm. So a productive hard conversation requires both people to be willing to listen and also ask curious questions, mm-hmm. like open-ended questions. And you need to listen. You need to actually listen and then allow the other person to respond as well. So I think from the angle of being an ADHDer, it could be that like our working memory challenges make us jump to conclusions. We're not really sure if we remember, there's so many thoughts in and out that we kind of go, wait, I think that's how that felt in that moment. or maybe I said something really quickly that sounded a little more blunt than I wanted it to come out, and then they responded. So you just assumed they're pissed at me because that came off rude, when I was just in a hurry. So for an ADHDer, for sure, you need to slow down and just ask yourself. Use that natural curiosity that your brain produces and go, I'm going to help myself in this situation, not add to the break in the relationship.
Yeah. So what does curiosity look like practically then?
Well, I think so in coaching, that's really, we ask questions when we're talking to our clients to build their own curiosity in their situation, to like get to the bottom, because each of our clients is creative, resourceful, and whole. They know themselves better. I may have, more knowledge on ADHD or more experience with these coaching tools and working through these things, but that does not mean I understand that person's ADHD or their trauma history or anything in their life better than they do. Not at all. So we always ask questions to bring out that curiosity for you to look deeper into why this thing is happening. Why are you stuck? What's triggering you? All those things. So they're non-accusatory questions, and you need to be genuinely interested in the truth of how they feel. So when you ask these questions, listen back to what they're saying, like really listen. And the curiosity that you're bringing shows that there's this willingness to learn. And that's an opportunity for us to understand each other, which is going to help our connection grow. Like assuming you know everything and only listening to respond, like already having something lined up to say in response rather than understand the other person just closes off the connection completely. So we call this active listening in coaching, which means you're like actively engaging in seeking to understand the other person. So your questions will kind of reflect that. If you ask them a question and they explain, and you're not quite sure, you think you understand what they said, but you're not quite sure. So you can say something like, "When you said this, what did you mean by that?" Because you could say, I just need to get stronger boundaries. Okay, when you said you're talking about stronger boundaries, what does that mean to you? Mm-hmm. Like, what does that look like? Because I may have an idea of what you're saying, you're alluding to, but I don't really know. And maybe when you ask that second question, you would sit there and go, what do I mean by that? And then you're able to have more clarity for yourself, so you're able to explain it better, right?
Right.
And, you can also be like, it sounds like you're saying this. Am I understanding that right? Like checking in, just being like, okay. I mean, you could go back and forth with this a couple of times to really get to the heart of something. Because sometimes when it's the first time or the first couple of times you're having this conversation, and maybe that person isn't fully safe yet. Maybe this is a pretty big rupture that you're trying to repair. You might have to go back and forth a little bit because you don't feel safe right away to say everything. So you let out a little bit. And then when they show you they're interested and they want to know more, you open up a little bit more. So it might take a little while, and you need to understand that coming into the interaction. So instead of just like being dismissive of, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, or oh, gosh, that's ridiculous. I would never make you feel that way. Why do you think I make you feel that way? It's help me understand what you mean by that. Like, I genuinely don't know. Or if you do know, say, okay, I feel like here's a situation that I remember. I, said this to you. Is that an example of what you're telling me? And share that you do remember this situation and it did feel uncomfortable for you. And that can really validate what they're trying to explain. And I know we've talked about her before, but Lindsay Gibson, who did the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, she notes that emotionally immature people will shut down or escalate when you're trying to have a hard conversation. So just know that when that happens, it's not about you. It's them shutting down because they're only worried about how this is affecting them, which makes it impossible to have a productive conversation. So we just need to recognize that behavior when it comes up and see that their reaction just tells you more about their issues and not your worth. Like, you're worthy of having a hard conversation. Like, you're valuable, and it's worth their effort to have this conversation, even if they don't see it. Like,
Yeah.
When people like shut you out and don't have the conversation, it makes you feel worthless. It makes you, question, all of that. So the fact that they can't honor or care for the relationship and give you an honest and caring conversation is not your fault. And which kind of brings us to...
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have the conversation. It's tricky because in a lot of the, when we're talking about having these hard conversations, in a lot of these scenarios, it could be one person feeling the need to bring something up, right? And so timing is tricky. Mm-hmm. And I think something that's helped us as we've evolved in our relationship is putting a pin in something, saying, hey, Jer, can we talk later? Something's bothering me. And maybe at least indicating what that might be.
Right.
So that it's not just pure anxiety until the kids go to bed. And then it's like, oh my God, what are we going to talk about? Letting your partner know, hey, this thing has been bothering me. Could we talk about it tonight when we have some time? It helps that person be prepared so they're not blindsided, because I think
you get immediately defensive if
of
you're
course,
blindsided.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. You're trying to process in real time something that somebody else has been thinking about for all that day or 2 days or a week or a month. So it's very easy to get defensive. But also approaching your reaction with that, what you just said, with that thought of, okay, I love this person. Mm-hmm. I really care about this person. They're bringing this up because there's an issue. Mm-hmm. And while I might not agree with what they're saying right now, I do love this person and want to come to a solution. Right. So
I don't want them to feel like this.
Yeah, we need to figure this out together.
Right.
It's not just, even if you feel like you are blindsided, or maybe the thing that they're bringing to you isn't, what is really bothering them, or you know what I mean? Like,
right. It might be like a non-issue, but it's obviously something that they're struggling with. Mm-hmm. So you want to be, supportive in that way of saying, yeah, like, let's figure it out. Like,
right. They're coming to you because they love you and this thing is bothering them.
Right.
You need to respond from that place of love, even if it upsets you.
Right.
Really, the goal is the same, right? To come together on...
Well, it should be.
On an issue.
It should be, yeah. And that's where, the whole reason that I realized that I was the scapegoat, and because that's what happens to me, is I don't get the conversation. Yeah. So instead, when I reached out for a hard conversation, I'm scapegoated instead of being heard, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a heartbreaking experience. It's been my life experience. So some conversations will never lead to repair, even if that's I mean, that's not what you expected. It's not why you asked for a conversation. That's not what you want. But you could go to them with vulnerability and hope to be seen and hope to be understood. And when you're met with attacks, blame, and complete abandonment, like, it really messes you up. You're so confused by why did that happen? So in these narcissistic or emotionally immature systems, they use gaslighting by denying your reality. That never happened. They want to invalidate your emotions, experience, and memories. Like, you must be confused, just to throw you off so you're not heard. Again, whatever you're saying, I'm going to try to convince you that's not what happened. Then character attacks, like we talked about in the last episode, calling someone crazy. Like, they can't just answer the question. They start mocking you. Oh, the one I love, and that's sarcasm, is they start mocking you while you're talking. Like, you're finishing a sentence and they're, doing that. Mm-hmm. Or, just begin to name call over you. Like, oh, you're so dramatic. Here we go again, whining and complaining, kind of an attitude. They try to tell you who you are by trying to make you feel the opposite of who they know you are, because those are the things that matter to you. So they're going to be the things that you fight for and defend the most, right? So, for example, my brother calling me selfish for wanting to have a connection with my sister, being completely ghosted by her out of nowhere. I'm selfish for wanting to communicate. Okay. I'm selfish for trying to protect someone I care from harm. Okay. That's selfish. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I know I'm not selfish. And I really do not like being called selfish, because that's not who I am. And he knows that. So that's why he does it. Yeah. And then, of course, the silent treatment, just not being heard. And they do this so that the repair falls on you. If you've been given the silent treatment, which, by the way, is psychological and emotional abuse, when they're deliberately ignoring you, refusing to communicate as a form of punishment. Like, you did something wrong in their eyes. So instead of having a difficult conversation about, I don't like that you did this, why did you do it? I'm hurt, whatever. They pretend that you don't exist so that you are confused, and then you're desperate to figure out how to reconnect. And when you're that ignored person, there's so much hurt. And then when you try again to reach out, and you're met with more silence, or like just no explanation, like no even, why are you not talking to me? The confusion on top of the hurt, it basically is, that silence is them informing you of your quote unquote wrongness, right? Without explanation. And it teaches you, even as a child, that you only deserve connection when you're compliant. When you do what I want to do, or you act in a way that I expected you to act, without communicating any of that, right? And this is where ADHD scapegoats get hit the hardest, I think, is because our justice sensitivity, our need for truth, and our genuine care about our connections means the silent treatment leaves us repeatedly like banging our heads against the wall. Like, rejection sensitivity happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a quick list that we created on how to know when to keep trying versus when to walk away.
And I just want to preface this by saying, I don't tell anyone, especially in coaching, but I don't tell anyone what to do or what not to do. We just want to list these signs so that you can ask these things to yourself to kind of assess what step you need to take, because I could give examples of things that I do, to my coaching clients, and I've tried this, but that may not work for them. That's why I try to offer a bunch of different resources, because what works for me might not work for them. It might, great, but it doesn't. I don't expect someone, if you don't follow these things exactly, it's never going to work for you or whatever. You have to figure out what works for you. So you have to ask yourself, are these things happening? Okay, if these things are happening, what do I need to do?
Yeah. So signs that it's time to walk away.
When there's no curiosity on their part. None.
Consistent blame shifting.
Yeah. Attacks on your character rather than talking about the issue, like the name calling.
Every conversation ends with you doubting reality.
Right. That one, when you are done with the conversation, you're like, how did that even happen? How did we get there? Like me reaching out to my brother to contact my sister, and I'm left crying because he's screaming at me and calling me selfish. And I'm like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah. How about signs that someone truly wants repair?
So when they treat you with respect and basic human decency, when you bring up a conflict or you bring up something that you'd like to discuss, if you're not immediately belittled and put down, and they say, okay, I see that's bothering you. Yeah, well, let's set some time to talk to work through this together.
They're willing to see they played a role in the rupture and are able to take accountability for their part.
Yeah. I think that's a big one, don't you?
Yeah.
Like just being able to say, yeah, I could have done this differently. I didn't realize that this is how you're feeling or whatever. I can see how that would feel that way for you, right?
Yeah, like little mini self-improvements in these hard conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. And when their words match their actions, which, sometimes with these repair conversations take a little longer. It takes some more time to prove that they're safe and that that their words are matching their actions. Because a lot of times the first conversation, it might just feel like they're telling you they're going to work on it, but past history or why you're even in this conversation to begin with might make you think, we'll see if that happens. But the more they come back, the more it's like, okay, I see that they're putting in the effort, even if they're not getting it right all the time. They're trying, they're showing up, they're taking accountability, all those things.
Yeah. And they focus on the issue at hand and ask questions for clarity. They're not deflecting.
Right.
They're not blame shifting.
Right. They're not bringing up something completely irrelevant so that they're
not pulling a piece, one thing you said wrong, like we talked about in the last episode.
Oh boy.
And countless arguments you've had with your dad or your older brother where they nitpick one thing in the conversation. They're focusing on the actual problem and they're trying to move forward with a solution.
Right. They're working with you. And I think part of that too, if you're starting to get overwhelmed or, maybe you're having this hard conversation, they do feel a little bit safer and you're going back and forth a little bit and you start to feel like you're getting off track or you're getting flustered. And they say, you want to take like a 10-minute break or something like that? And they're aware, because they're actively listening to you, they can hear in your voice when you're about to break and start crying or you're getting frustrated, or if you raise your voice a little bit because you're frustrated, right? That's a good thing too. So what we want to do is give you some practical tools, and that means to shift your energy toward people who want connection. So before you even consider having these hard conversations, you have to ask yourself, like you may think, I need to have this conversation because this thing is bothering me, but you need to ask yourself, what is the ideal outcome? We ask that in coaching, every single coaching session. What would you like to get out of your coaching session today? Because you have an idea in your head, whether you know it or not. What is your ideal outcome? And what is the reason that you want to have this conversation? And is it to, is it to go and just get it off your chest? Is it to stop having that same argument over and over because you've been logging it, you've been tracking, and you notice it keeps happening? And, the fight isn't about the dishes. I don't know what it's about, but it's not the dishes, right? Or is it to understand what went wrong? Like, I feel like we're disconnected. I don't really know what's going on. Is there something going on, right? Like, you just genuinely don't know. You just feel a disconnect. Or is it because they're giving you the silent treatment and you feel obligated to have a conversation because, I don't know, why am I being ignored, right?
Yeah.
So I've had to do this before, but writing it down first when speaking is too hard. And you can express that to the person you're having the conversation with, saying, this is hard for me, and I kind of expect some emotions to come up, and I wanted to write out my thoughts so to make sure they don't get lost in translation. Because I think sometimes, depending on each person's stance in these hard conversations, you getting emotional might make them feel defensive, or you getting emotional might make them feel so horrible when maybe they didn't even do anything wrong. They just don't like seeing you like that. So like your emotions affect their emotions, and then you're not even really solving the problem anymore. So sometimes when you write it down, I know people can think, oh, that feels really cold, but this is where neurodiversity, like, just open yourself up to different ways in which people are able to communicate or able to understand. If you say, I'm going to be, fidgeting, or I need to stand during this conversation because if I rock back and forth, I can hear you better, or any of those things, like, just say, I wrote this down, or I'm standing up and moving back and forth, not because I'm nervous, but because it helps me listen and it helps me, form my sentences, whatever the situation is. Just communicate that so it doesn't get lost in translation. And be clear about your intentions.
Yeah. I want to talk about blank because I want to find a solution together. Right.
And like you said, if you're kind of setting aside time because you have kids, or, it just popped into your head, or, it's just kind of been sitting with you and you didn't approach it right when it happened, again, because something else was going on, and you say, I want to talk about this. Can we set aside some time? Like, I love you. I'm not mad. We just need to set some time because I need to, get to the bottom of this. Set limits as well. So you're kind of setting, boundaries, really, for yourself, and, to let the other person know what you're kind of expecting. So you can say, I want to be able to repair what's been broken, but if I'm attacked and, screamed at, or you're calling me names to belittle me, I'm ending the conversation.
Well, that's not a conversation either.
Right. It's not. And that's just saying, if you start yelling at me and calling me names, I'm going to end the conversation. I'm not doing that. It's like, and unfortunately, the fact that you even have to say, I need you to treat me with basic human decency, or I'm leaving the conversation, kind of shows how much you really think that person is going to actually open up to do this.
Or how much you think they actually respect you. I mean, could you imagine an argument or a conversation that we're having where we're screaming at one another and calling each other names?
No. I mean, I can imagine in the sense of that's what I grew up with, but not me and you.
Yeah.
Me and you, no. Oh my God. That's the thing. I think there's this, that's how my parents' relationship was, so that's just how I am, or, that's just how people are. I hate that line so much. That's just how they are. No. How do you want to show up? Like, do you want to just unconsciously just like go through whatever comes out and not make like conscious choices that align with the person you want to be? Like, that's the whole thing. If we'll get lost. We could go down so many avenues, rabbit holes. But set those limits. You know who you're talking to. If this is the setting the limits, especially if this is the first time after a big rupture where someone's attacked you, I will end the conversation if you start yelling and screaming at me. And if you're scapegoated, document your truth, get outside support away from these people, and kind of release the fantasy or the false hope that these abusive people will just suddenly grow some curiosity. Like,
and that circles back to asking yourself, what do I really want out of this conversation? Like you talked about in coaching, kind of pulling out that solution, that desired outcome from the client. You have to do that with yourself too.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I need to say this I've asked you this question. I know your therapist has asked you this question in dealing with some of the relationships in your immediate family or your family of origin. What do you want to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What do you actually want to happen before you spend energy on that conversation?
Yeah, because like you said before, we go somewhere where we might run into someone, we play scenarios or whatever, or just, hey, before we go do this, let's get on the same page. If the kids have one cookie, that's it, and then we have to no more. We need to set them up for success, not make us crazy. All those things. It's one of those things where just bringing something up, it looks like you're picking at something that hasn't happened yet. But really, you want to honor your experiences and your, the time you have with people and set everyone up for success in that way. So actually asking yourself, what would my ideal outcome be? If you don't know the answer to that question, it's not time to have the conversation. Because if you don't know what the outcome is, or you don't have a goal in mind, your conversation won't go anywhere. You might just be like, what's my ideal outcome? For me to get all of this off my chest? Well, do they care?
Right, exactly.
You getting it all off your chest and then them belittling you and not listening to you and still treating you the same way, is that going to make you feel better, really?
Write it down.
Yeah.
Write a letter that you'll never send.
Yes.
Write it in an email.
There are other solutions.
And then put it in your drafts folder. Write it out in a notebook, in a journal. Write it on a piece of paper and throw it in the garbage.
And I say this from experience, being a person that's like, they need to know that they hurt me. Like that, I used to do that. They need to know. They don't know. Yeah, they do. They know. They're acting like they don't know, or they're acting like it doesn't bother them, or, they weren't doing anything wrong. That's the whole, no, they know. So don't waste your energy in that way. Use your energy to help support yourself. So to wrap this up, everything you want, peace, clarity, connection, love, all of it, it really does need a hard conversation. Whether you're honest with yourself in that hard conversation, or just, coming together with someone else. But it's about seeing the reality of the situation, being honest about what's happening, what's going wrong, rather than just living in denial or, assuming someone has good intentions. Not everybody has good intentions. No. Assuming people have bad intentions. That might not be the case. You might be hurt. Their intentions might not have been malicious. It still could have hurt you. And you go to have the conversation so that you understand each other. oh my gosh, that's not at all what I meant by that. I'm so sorry. I can see how that made you feel that way. But assuming anything is, so wrong. And it makes it so you build this resentment, or you could assume that they don't care. They don't want to talk to you. So why, you're just going to be a burden. You're going to waste their time, right? All those things. Sometimes it's really just facing someone that's harmed you or someone that you've harmed, and understand the outcome isn't always reconciliation, unfortunately. Sometimes it's freedom.
Right. Yeah. And that's big, because even if the person refuses, you still gain clarity, because their response, even if it's the silent treatment, is an answer.
Right. Right. It takes practice to remind yourself to stand in your knowing that you've done all this work to be able to handle that no response. It doesn't make it hurt any less. It just helps you recover quicker when you're kind of prepared. So, truth tellers, your voice matters. Start small. Practice using your curiosity for good. Ask for it in return from those around you. And remember, avoiding conflict only keeps you in disconnection with others. Facing it, even when it's hard, is your path to peace and love. So thanks for joining us. If this resonated, share it with someone who might be scared of having a hard conversation too. Also, if you're being scapegoated, we feel you. We feel it's hard to have these hard conversations too. So subscribe, leave a review, come back next week. Until next time.